Expect in the weeks to come?
Well, let's ask host of Fox News Sunday, Chris Wallace. Chris, good to see you this morning.
Good morning, Chris. Good morning.
Good morning.
So let's start with the speculation this morning. Everyone wondering who he's going to put in some of these key top positions. It really gives the American people a sense of the direction he'll take this country and how he hopes to govern, right?
Oh, absolutely. And it's going to begin right at the beginning with, I think, the chief of staff. And I suspect because Kellyanne Conway, who's going to be one of our guests on Fox News Sunday, said that choice will be imminent. Chief of staff is very important. It's the person, some say the second toughest job in Washington, the person who really runs the White House staff and who decides who gets in to see the president, who doesn't, what papers get to him, what doesn't. There seem to be two prime choices, although we really don't know what's going on inside the transition. One is Reince Priebus, who's the Republican Party chair, very much an insider, somebody who, knows how to make the trains run on time. The other speculative top choice would be Steve Bannon, who was from Breitbart, the CEO of the Trump campaign, very much an outsider and a fierce anti-establishment critic. Look, in the end, Trump will decide what his administration is going to be, but the choice of the chief of staff is going to go a long way to saying whether he wants somebody on the inside who knows how to change things or whether he wants somebody from the outside.
Well, and also, Chris, we can't go past what happened with Chris Christie. I mean, Mike Pence now heading up this transition team. The New York Post this morning saying that Trump was pretty disgusted with Chris Christie. A couple of sources going on the record basically saying that he didn't like that Christie let a soccer mom on his staff take the fall and that he knew everything was going on with Bridgegate. So he's out, according to the New York Post. He was been pretty disgusted with him over the past few weeks.
Yeah, I can't, I honestly haven't seen the New York Post story today, but it was pretty clear to me that Christie was out because the transition chief is a pretty public person, to a certain degree, the face of the transition, and you didn't want Chris Christie, after all the troubles he'd had with Bridgegate and all the testimony in the trial in which two of his top aides were convicted of conspiracy and fraud, that he knew about it as well. As soon as that came down, you knew that he wasn't going to want Chris Christie around taking questions from reporters about the Trump administration.
Chris, you've got your finger on the pulse in Washington as well as anybody. The speculation was always, how will the swamp, how will Washington react to a Donald Trump presidency? Here we are with it settling a little bit 4 or 5 days later. What are you hearing about how folks are responding? Do they want to be a part of the administration? Are they holding back? How's the outreach?
Well, I will say that the congressional leaders that we've talked to, Paul Ryan, the House Speaker, was on a special report this week, and I spent a little bit of time with him off camera. He was as excited as a kid in a candy store, because you've got to remember, whatever you think, and Lord knows there were plenty of tensions between Trump and Ryan during the campaign, right. You've got to know that Trump is, or rather Ryan is very excited at the idea that all of this agenda that he had bottled up, that he couldn't get past Barack Obama, now if he can get it to Donald Trump's desk, he'll get it signed and put into law.
Yeah, that's a great point.
They are very excited.
Great point. You've got a big show coming up, Fox News Sundays. You mentioned Kellyanne Conway, who I just saw here in the makeup room. You have some questions to ask her, I'm sure.
Then you've also got
Kellyanne Conway, senior advisor to the transition, and we'll also be talking to Kevin McCarthy, who is the House Majority Leader.
Interesting.
Fox News Sunday must watch. Chris Wallace, check your local listing for Fox News Sunday. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks,
as always.
Bye, guys.
All right.
All right. Overnight, the anti-Trump temper tantrums, that's what they are. They're temper tantrums. They grow on the streets. Well, can these liberals really call this, is that freedom of speech? That doesn't look like to me. We break down this destructive behavior in a fair and balanced debate. It's coming up next, and you're not going to want to miss it.
Speech?
Absolutely not. It's not protected under the First Amendment. People, you have the right to peacefully protest and, say what you don't like about what's going on in your government. But when it turns to violence against your fellow American, when it turns to violence on the properties of your fellow Americans, that is not protected. That requires the intervention of our law enforcement. And in my opinion, because so many of them are young, the the intervention of their parents. Also, too, Hillary Clinton, when she conceded, did not address her supporters, and I think that was not good judgment on her part, because she and the president were screaming about smooth transition. Would Donald Trump accept a smooth transition, or would he concede? And look at what's happening when she did not come in and talk to her people.
So,
but let me say this. I think that Donald Trump should give a speech to the whole of America. Obviously, he ran a very divisive campaign. I think he should say to everyone, I will be everybody's president, and clarify, does he plan on building a wall? I'm hearing that now maybe he might not. So I think
he has called on social media.
He
we need
has
a few
already
tweets
clarified.
here.
Give me a break.
And he even during his speech, we have an interview tonight on 60 Minutes where he addressed that.
He said it was very unfair on social media. He got on social media and said all these protesters are very unfair. He's the president.
Where is President Obama on this? He's still the president of the United States.
Exactly.
He's on the golf
He
course
is the reigning president. It is his job to talk to Americans.
No, it's
he
not.
was quiet in Ferguson, quiet in Philly, quiet when a lot of these things broke out that were un-American as far as I'm concerned.
president-
And what I'll
Brian,
say is this.
Hold on a second. Brian,
go ahead.
there were a lot of people who didn't vote. We saw numbers significantly down in
That's
Philadelphia
true.
where we're seeing these riots.
That's
Portland,
right.
Michigan, Detroit.
That's true.
These people that are out there organized suddenly,
know that.
spontaneously.
You're saying
Being paid.
Some
Being
people
paid.
is organized,
Did
but
they
some it's
vote?
not.
Why didn't they vote? Couldn't they have done this before Election Day?
I believe a lot of them did vote. The bottom line was there wasn't enough votes. I mean, look, Donald Trump won the election fair and square. I don't think anyone's arguing that.
Thank you. God bless your lips.
People are making the case that the way he won was inappropriate, and there's consequences to his words, and that's why people are protesting.
What I would say is this: Donald Trump got the white vote, he got black votes, he got Hispanic votes, he got Chinese votes, he got Arab votes, he got all kinds of votes. People of all races and nationalities, creeds. I'm sorry, excuse me, sir.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I apologize. Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Don't forget.
But yes, Donald Trump, he appealed to all Americans. So this nonsense about racist, and I'm not a racist, I'm not a xenophobe,
All right, so
I'm
guys,
not a
how do we turn the page? We've got 30 seconds left. Can we solve America's ills here? How do we turn the page and heal this?
The president-elect comes out and says publicly that he is going to protect the rights of all Americans, and that Muslims should not be scared, Latinos should not be scared, and that he is going to be a president for this entire country.
It's just basically saying, well, we're just going to, try harder.
Yeah, you got to admit what you've done wrong if you're going to try to get it right in the future. And I think what the Times did wrong was not just predicting the election wrong, but they tried to influence the election every step of the way with hit piece after hit piece on Donald Trump. And that was missing the mood of the voters, but it was also trying to tamper with the election.
Yeah, the big takeaway from this election was the American people giving the middle finger to the establishment, to the media elite, as you could call the New York Times. And it seems like they've had an attitude, right? The New York Times acting as if they knew better than the American people. They knew what was going to happen, and much to their surprise, they were wrong.
Right. I think they decided on a narrative early on in this election that Donald Trump was unfit, unworthy to be president. Hillary Clinton was the only choice. So all of their coverage was designed to prove their prejudice about this election. When they would interview Trump people out, Trump supporters at these rallies, it was to show them being kooky people, as opposed to really trying to figure out what was going on, what was motivating them, what were the economic issues that had been unaddressed in the last 8 years that would make them go this way. And I think, they just, choosing the conclusion first and then reporting to fill in the gaps is biased reporting, and it made them really miss the political story of the decade.
Very much so. And it doesn't count as an apology if in that same letter you say, we thought we were fair throughout the entire election. But you know what they suffer from is their bottom line. They're a business. They've got to make money, and they're not making it. They've been hearing from their readers. Here's a letter from a New York Times reader, Nick Crawford from Plymouth, Michigan. He wrote, perhaps the election result would not be such a surprise if your reporting had acknowledged what ordinary Americans care about, rather than pushing the limited agenda of your editors. Please come down from your New York City skyscraper and join the rest of us. I think Nick speaks for a lot of people.
I think he does, and I think it's also not just the New York Times. There's ABC, CBS, NBC. A lot of these liberal New York-based media outlets were blindsided by this election. They tried to influence it in a way to help Hillary Clinton, and they're all losers in this election.
Yeah, well, Tuesday was a huge wake-up call.
Sure
and if it
was.
wasn't, then it needs to be.
We'll see if it will be, really. It's a challenge. You can't just turn off the progressive switch when you've got an agenda. We'll see how they do
If it
it.
was too little too late. All right, good to see you this morning.
Thank you.
Rich.
Thanks.
All right, coming up, Ted Cruz, the next Supreme Court justice. Is that a real possibility? We're going to look at some of the potential nominees.
That's right. Plus, Oprah's got a message for these angry liberal, protesters, maybe rioters. She says, chill out.
I think everybody can take a deep breath.
All about you.